It's 11/26/14 if you need it, if it ever locks.
So I'm happy to introduce Chad. Chad is the CEO and co-founder of RemodelMate.
What's up, guys?
He's a UMD alum, even though he dropped out.
Funny story.
And he'll take it from here. Thanks, Chad.
All right, no doubt, Sam. Thanks a lot, Sam. Cool, so how's it going, guys? Like Sam said, my name's Chad Hall. I am one of the co-founders and the CEO of RemodelMate. It's a home improvement marketplace that is designed to connect homeowners to contractors without them having to meet on site for an estimate. And I know that doesn't sound like super unique or like crazy, but when you look at Answers or Home Advisor, they're really just like big directories online that don't really change the behavior. So we'll get into that later. It might be another talk, but today the talk is called 0 to 100 because I'm obsessed with Drake and I just thought it'd be funny as shit. But it's about customer discovery and validation. So one of the cool things, and I was telling Sam, I was telling Ryan about this, is that my co-founders, Steven and Victor, both with me, we're all come from the home improvement, real estate, whether it's residential or commercial background. So we didn't really have a ton of technical chops to begin with. Like, I thought that HTML stood for how to meet ladies, like 6 months ago, maybe. And CSS, I couldn't spell like CSS. That's how bad it was. So part of the thing with us is like a year ago, I spoke with Craig and he was like, all right, cool, how can I help? And I was like, well, I need like $1 jillion and I need to hire like 1 million people so I can build this thing and like take over the world. And he was like, everybody calm the fuck down. You don't need any of that. Actually, what you need to do is figure out whether or not this is really a problem and whether or not they really want your solution. And he challenged me to talk to 100 people before I built a website, before I spent any money on marketing, anything. So a lot of this talk will all come from the stuff that Craig told me and a little bit of stuff that I learned along the way that I'd like you guys to avoid. But I'll get started. Pretty much the first thing is that we all kind of start the same place. You got this idea, and I mean, I'm sure all you guys are in here for some reason. So you guys want to share any ideas with me on like what you're doing? Anybody? What's up? For makeup artists. So you want to create I appreciate that. What's your name? William. If that doesn't work out, like you got a job just because you said RemodelMate 4. I definitely appreciate that. So you want to build a marketplace for makeup artists. Cool. Anybody else? I won't bite. Go ahead. Vibration energy harvesting system. That's the tech shit that I didn't have when I was in college. That is awesome. So yeah, those are both great ideas. And most of the people will say like Uber for this or RemodelMate for this. Shout out to you. Airbnb for that. The next Google. And that's all good, right? Everybody has to have big ideas. And most people think that like you create an idea and then $1 billion exit and tons of money and that's it. Like there's nothing. That's how I felt, right? A year ago. But that's not really true. Like if you wanted to clone Uber today, and that means not having 40 million unique drivers or rides per month, it would probably take you at minimum 13 weeks to do it. Airbnb probably costs you like $12,000 if you paid someone to do it. The next Google, you need well over $1 billion. And then on-demand booger picking, like if that's something that people want, it's still going to take you a lot of time. And the whole point is you don't really want to spend this much time or that much money building an idea that nobody really wants. So for me, I always like to ask anybody who asks me, like, hey, how'd you come up with the idea or how can I come up with my idea? It's, what would you do if you could test any one of these ideas for free? Like that's the question that I would always ask. And sorry, I told you I'm obsessed. A lot of people are like, that probably could only mean one thing, and that it's going to be like, oh, you're trying to go viral or you're going to ask all your friends, and that's not what I mean at all. Really, the first thing is you need to be able to describe your idea in 140 characters or less. If you can't tweet it, it's too long, you don't understand it well enough for like your grandmother to understand it. So figure this part out first, and then, and only then, should you like try and figure out the next steps. So Your customer discovery goals are super easy. You want to find out if there's a market for your idea, product, or feature. The reason why I say like idea and feature as well, because some of you guys might have already like live products out in the market in some way, shape, or form, and you're thinking about building an additional feature. I think that customer discovery applies to live products and products that aren't yet launched yet. Don't spend time building a new feature or a new, anything for anybody if you haven't validated yet. It's just a waste of time and a waste of money. The second thing is you get a sample of what your users or customers will look like. And that is probably the most interesting part, because a lot of people will think like, hey, my target customer is going to be this person, this old, make this amount of money, and like I'd probably say 10 times out of 10 you're going to be wrong. The last part is, and probably the most important part, is that you literally get to build a list of your first prospects. And because I'm a sales guy, there is a difference between a prospect or a lead or customer. Prospects are somebody who said like, I might buy your shit. Customers are people that have already paid for it. So those are the goals. I'll kind of refer back to this throughout the talk. But the first step is really just want to figure out who is most likely to see value in your idea, product, or feature. And if you're like most entrepreneurs, most founders, you probably think it's everybody. And that's fair, and maybe that will be the truth like one time, one day, 40 years from now. But most of the time, it's not really the issue that you can help everybody on the planet. There are like few companies like Google, like that's literally designed for anybody with an internet connection. YouTube, like you have both content creators and content consumers. Like if you have an internet connection, you can be their customer. But like RemodelMate, for example, if you're not a homeowner, you see zero value in the problem that we're solving. And if you're not interested in energy, I don't care how you create it, I'm not interested. If I don't wear makeup, I'm probably not interested. And it's okay, just know those things going into it. One of my buddies, who's actually in the audience today, says that like startups should focus on like burning down one tree instead of trying to boil the ocean. And I think if we all take that focus, it gets a lot easier. If you think of like all the really big companies, Facebook, Uber, Airbnb, they solved for one type of customer's problem first. Facebook was college students at the at Harvard, not the University of Maryland. Uber was black car limo drivers in San Francisco. Airbnb was people who were paying $6,000 rent in San Francisco. And then once they proved it there, they realized that they could just duplicate it everywhere. So figure that out. For us, we were like, who do we think is most likely to see value in our product? We thought first and foremost homeowners. Then we said probably real estate agents, because they deal with a lot of homeowners, and not that they will personally see value in it, but they'll refer us to people that will. Loan officers, because they're right behind real estate agents who just come in contact with a lot of homeowners. And then homeowners associations who kind of like manage the different communities. And then real estate investors were last. Now, one of the things that's like super interesting is I made these boxes like different sizes because our initial hypothesis was like homeowners are going to see the most value in this. Real estate agents and loan officers will probably split, but they'll be next on the on the rung. And then homeowners associations, not so much. We'll probably solve for like a small fraction of them who want to manage, like homeowners associations, by the way, they tell everybody like, hey, before you change anything on your house, you need to get it okayed by me. So homeowners associations, we were like, hey, if we could make it super easy for them to manage the projects that were coming in and out of their community, we probably can make a lot of money with those guys. And then real estate investors, we were like, those guys are absolutely last. And to kind of figure out, like once we came up with this idea, like the next step is to go, for us, we wanted to do 20 of each persona so that we can do user interviews with them. And then the next 6 series of questions, so like, I don't know if you saw at the top, but it's 6 steps to customer discovery. There are like different questions that we asked in the interviews. The number one worst question to ask any type of user is like, hey, this is my idea, would you use it? Most of the times they're your friends. If they're not your friends, they're like your parents' friends and they like you and they don't really want to piss on you because you might be right and they want to be like, oh yeah, I supported since day one. And they're automatically going to say, yeah, I would totally use that. And then you come back 13 weeks later after you spend a lot of time and money on it and you're like, yo, it's $1,000. And you're like, that's great. Not going to buy that. Like, I know this really cool person that like I only talk to once a year that would totally love to buy that, but not me. And you don't want that to happen. So there's a bunch of like open-ended questions that I'm going to show you guys that you can ask. But I would say like nail it down to 5. Try and get 20 of each just because it's super easy. And like from a math perspective, if 20 out of 100 people say this is great, that's a 20% interest. You might have something. If 50 out of the 100 people that you talk to say yes, then like you definitely should build that today. Like stop what you're doing. Don't answer calls from your mom. Don't eat. Don't sleep. Maybe shower. But like go and build this thing if 50% of the people that you talk to say yes. So this is an actual, like after we went and talked to all the people, like we thought homeowners were going to be first, and actually it ended up being real estate investors. And then we were kind of on the money with real estate agents, but then homeowners ended up being third. And that was kind of interesting to us, and we were like, why did that happen? Homeowners associations stayed where they were, and then loan officers ended up being last. So to kind of talk about these 3 things, what we didn't realize, like what we thought we were building at RemodelMate was a way for homeowners to connect with contractors and kind of be able to say like, oh, I know what the price is, and since I know what the price is, I'm not going to like have to haggle anymore. And that was going to be like the biggest value driver. But in reality, real estate investors saw the most value in what we were doing simply because it saved them time and money. So real estate investors who are either buying properties that are like falling apart, like they're pieces of shit, right? And they're paying for the mortgage every single month. And every month that it's not either back on the market to rent or to sell, it's costing them cash. So the ability for us to allow them to get from, piece of shit to 2x their investment, that was very valuable to them. And then the fact that they didn't have to meet with the contractor to coordinate all the different installs was also super compelling. But then as an added like little sprinkle on top, the fact that we could compare and contrast price like immediately, they were also saving money. So where they might have known a guy who could have done all the work that we are offering to them or connecting them to, the fact that we were able to save them cash and save them time made our solution like very, very attractive to them. Real estate agents who we originally thought would be like referrers ended up being some of our biggest customers. Like I would say like 20% of them, they're like, yeah, I have my house that I never have time to take care of because I'm always selling houses to other people. So again, it was the whole idea of saving time and money, not just saving cash. And if we would have built an app to save cash, we probably would have missed out on both of these guys who now make up 60% of our customer base. So that's really why it's important to like test this stuff and actually talk to people before you go out and start building, because what will then happen is you'll build for these guys who have told us like they only plan to do stuff once every 10 years, and that's not like a super sexy business, at least when you're coming out of the gate and it costs a lot of money to acquire customers. And then homeowners associations were like, hey, we'll do it, but they wanted to see tons of traction before they like signed on to use us. So they were like, hey, I don't want to be your guinea pig. I'm going to let you out to my 13 communities and like that's 2,000 homeowners. Like no way, no how, little puny startup, I'm going to let you go and talk to all these guys because if you screw it up, it's going to be my ass, not yours. And then loan officers, it was weird because we actually got a referral from one of Victor's friends who works as a loan officer at Capital One. And we were like, oh shit, why didn't we think of that? Like, that's a great idea. Cool, cool, cool. And then when we actually spoke to 20 of them, they were like, yeah, I don't really get that like challenge. Like once people get to me, they're like ready to buy their house and they're ready to go. There are a small subset of them that were like, yep, we want to go. And it was weird because it kind of like divided up loan officers. So there's something called an FHA 203K loan where you buy a house for 200 grand, you need $50,000 worth of rehab, and then they'll just create like one big $250,000 mortgage. And those guys were all over us, right? But it's again, like the frequency of the 203K loans wasn't as high as we thought it was. And if we would have built an app for loan officers, like we would have had a completely different business. So I also want to stop, like if there's any other questions, like you guys don't have to wait till the end. I do have time like reserved for Q&A, but any questions, feel free to just shout them out right in the middle. And then the next question is, what challenge are they currently having? I put currently having because there are a lot of people who try and build an application to like change behavior, and that's awesome. That's what you want to do eventually. So like in 2009, Travis was like, hey, 6 years from now, people are gonna press a button, hop in a stranger's car and go home. And everybody was like, you're fucking out of your mind. And now, when was the last time, like show of hands, how many people took an Uber like this week? How many this month? So he was right, right? But the thing is that you guys have to remember that Travis built an app for black car like limo drivers. Like he realized that they were undercapitalized, they weren't making a lot of money, and they had the shittiest dispatch system ever. You would have to call someone, reserve something like 2 weeks ahead of time, then that person may or may not show up on time, and then on top of that, they were like 3 times as expensive. So he literally built like a logistics system first to prove for that case, and then said, well, I actually don't need you guys anymore. I'm just gonna go figure out how to get my own drivers, and I'm gonna keep the spread. And 7 years later, the most valuable startup, fastest growing startup ever. But the thing is that while he knew where he wanted to go, he solved for a problem that customers were currently having. Now again, I know that most of you guys are super brainy tech guys. I wasn't, I was a sales guy. And I probably will say I'm still a sales guy. Customers only make a buying decision for one of these 3 reasons. If it costs cheaper than the other solution that they're using, the quality of their experience is better, or that they're saving time, or some variation of these 3. But like, there is not a scenario in the world where somebody makes a buying decision without acting on one of these 3 things. So there are good cases where like your tool, your app, your feature may save time and money. I did that backwards. Maybe it improves the quality of their experience. So like Airbnb, for example, doesn't necessarily save on cost. Like we can rent an Airbnb that's physically more expensive than a night at the Marriott, but the quality of your experience is usually better. Like your host will meet you at the door. They'll tell you can eat all my food and drink all my booze. That's cool. And then the time that it takes to book is definitely a lot cheaper. So they're solving for these 2 things. But no matter what you say, any one of these 3 buying decisions has to come into play before you to make a decision. Now, I'll go back to this, sorry. So when we built RemodelMate, again, going back to our original hypothesis, we thought that our big shtick would be that we would save them money. That by allowing them to compare prices up front, they'll be able to choose like the cheapest contractor. And by giving them the ability to go with the cheapest guy, like that's what's gonna be most valuable to us. Yeah, the quality might be better because they don't have to meet with multiple contractors before they make a decision. And by not having to meet with multiple people, they're saving time. So it literally went in this order and we were like, it's all equal, but most importantly, cost is first. When in reality, this is what happened. So going back to those real estate investors that we talked about, they were most impressed by our solution because of the time that we saved them, the quality of the experience, and also the products that we were referring to them. So we were able to tell them like, hey, that's a really shitty door. Like, yes, it costs $50, but it's a super shitty door. Do you want to buy a $50 door every year, or do you want to buy a $500 door every 20 years? And then last but not least, like cost was the last thing that they said, like, okay, if it saves me marginally more cash, then I'm in, because I'm in the business of making money on the houses that I invested. So that was like super cool to me to take a look at. And it just goes back to, again, like this is what we thought was gonna happen, this is what happened. So take a look at the problem that you're solving for. or that your customers are currently saying that they're having, and solve for that. And you'll be able to realize, like, okay, cool, I need to make sure that my solution is saving them 10 times the amount of time that they would spend on Angie's List or Home Advisor or, any one of the like 400 competitors that we have. So, yes, it is 400. That's not funny though. All right, cool. So then the next question is like, when is the problem the biggest pain in the ass for them? So this kind of speaks to not only where in the funnel that they are, but also when in terms of how frequent it might happen. So going back to testing this, we went through and we said, when the customer wants to move forward, that's what we thought, but doesn't have the time to coordinate the last mile. So remember, we put time, like we thought that wasn't really important. So we were like, hey, when it comes to being like the biggest pain in the ass, like if we can solve for cash, if we can solve for quality, then time, like we solve for that, we'll be able to get them through the pipeline. And that's not really true. What we learned was that when the customer needs to move forward, and this applied to not only homeowners, real estate investors, real estate agents, but also homeowners. So for real estate investors, if they are ready to move forward on a flip, but they're trying to move quickly, and the inability to move quickly will actually cost them more money. They got to pay another month's mortgage, tax, utilities, all that stuff to keep the house just like above water until they can flip it. That's when it's the biggest pain in the ass for them. Real estate agents, when I have a buyer that comes to me and is like, I want to buy, 123 Fake Street, but I know that it's a fixer-upper and I have no idea how much it's going to cost, so I need to think about this again. Like, that's when it was the biggest pain in the ass for them. That's how like we provided value. And then homeowners, same thing. Like, if my roof starts leaking today, I don't have time to like consider multiple different contractors. I don't have time to deal with their scheduling, which like you call a contractor today and they don't show up until next week. And then when they show up next week, they're late. And then when they're late, they also take 2 or 3 hours of your time before they'll tell you how much it costs and when they can get started. So all of those scenarios are scenarios where the inability to move quickly after they are ready to move forward will actually cost them more money. That's how we provide the most value. Which is also super curious or like interesting to think of, because when you think about it, like your users, your customers, and like there's a difference. A user is somebody who like literally just logs into your application. A customer is somebody who actually pays you. Don't get those two confused. I got them confused. It was very bad. They don't really know what they want, because remember, this is what they ended up telling us, right? Like time first, then quality, then cost. But really that was like a linear process. It was like save me time, then save me money, whether indirectly or directly, and then give me a very quality experience. It's funny, like Henry Ford, I don't know, I'm like super into quotes. Henry Ford said like, you shouldn't that's the reason why you shouldn't ask like direct questions like, would you use this? Because he famously said, like, if I would have asked my customers what they wanted back in the early 1900s, they would have said a faster horse. Like, they had no concept of a car. So again, sometimes you have to be able to like ask the right questions so that you can get the right answers to build your product. So this is what it ended up being, right? Save time, marginally save cost, whether indirectly or indirectly so, either on the cost of the project or the opportunity cost, and then give me a really good experience, like not having to meet with multiple contractors and spend 2 to 3 hours for the next 2 weeks with these like sleazy contractors. Nothing against contractors, by the way, like not all of them are sleazy, but some of them are. So that's that. The next thing is, where are they when they're trying to solve this problem? And I know this is like a super weird question, but like Sam was telling me about this idea that he came up with. Can I share your idea, by the way? All right, so everybody here is familiar with GitHub, right? Perfect. Everybody knows how like it logs all of your activities like automatically. Like if I do a pull request, it's going to tell me like the last time I did a pull request was today at 7:30. Now, what Sam has realized is that for word processing, so whether it's Keynote pages or numbers, or if you're in the Microsoft stack, then it's Excel, PowerPoint, Word, that there is no way for you to do like track changes or save or log track changes. So people end up with really funny shit for extensions. So it's like English 101 term paper, like third update, October 24, 2016. And it's like, why the hell do we name documents stuff like that? And it's because if I submit the draft today, I submit it to my teacher, they come back and give me all these corrections. I want to then implement those corrections, but I also want the original version to refer back to. There isn't a solution like that today that exists that allows me to like prevent myself from having to flip back and forth between different versions of the same document. So when do we have this problem, or where are they when they're trying to solve this problem? Most people aren't trying to solve that problem from their smartphone. So it would be kind of stupid if you were to then try and build an iOS or Android app. Maybe initially, right? 10 years from now when Sam solves for this problem and is getting ready to sell it to Microsoft, people are probably he's going to change behavior and people are going to be doing this from their smartphones. But today, they do that from college dorm, an office. So it's either make it cloud-based, which would probably be the cheapest, or make it a web app that they can, an app that you can install to your desktop. So for us, same thing. We realize that our average ticket is $11,000, whether you're doing windows, roofing, siding, and those types of decisions just don't happen like while you're in an Uber on your way home. They happen at the kitchen table, or they happen, at the office if you're one of those real estate investors or real estate loan officers. So we were right with this one when the customer is at home, and then what we learned is that could also mean office as well, depending on who you were. And then this is a super interesting answer because it'll kind of tell you like what the competitive landscape is. So ask, like, why do you put up with this problem now? Like, is it because the other solutions that exist are too expensive? The other solutions that exist are very hard to understand and work with? Or is it that, the time that it takes to go and find other solutions is just too long? If any one of those answers comes up, you might realize that you have no competitors, which is a good and a bad thing. Good because you kind of get to create an industry or a vertical, and bad because you're creating an industry or a vertical. So it's going to take a little bit of education. But if you're like most companies or most ideas, you do have competition, and then you'll be able to build against that thing. So for us, it's like Angie's List doesn't really save me that much time because they only help me find the contractor. But then after that, you still have to meet with them, each contractor, usually up to 3, for 2 to 3 hours before you can even get somewhere. Also, the cost, like that's not really a challenge for us because Angie's List and Home Advisor are also free. But it's not that they're putting up with this problem because they can't afford to pay Angie's List. Like the reason is because there isn't another tool that can do what we are saying that we can do. Originally, we thought that the answer would be because like major home improvements don't happen very often, because we were under the impression that like our target customer was going to be homeowners and like homeowners alone. And what we learned is that they look for solutions in other tools. And while there was a marked improvement, they just simply didn't know that like there were other opportunities that existed. And like that's cool because Home Advisor does $400 million a year. Angie's List does $330 million a year. So those two guys combined, the number 1 and number 2 in our industry, make up less than 1% of the $313 billion that gets spent on home improvements every year. So the fact that they're like, hey, I just don't know that other solutions existed, it lets us know that, hey, those companies that are huge and super successful still aren't solving this problem. And if they know about us, if we find a very cool way to educate our consumers that we exist, we might be able to capture some very large percentage of the marketplace. So, fun fact, the way that we do it today is knocking on doors, which is like the most like idiotic sounding way to like acquire customers. The cool thing is that like in an hour, if the three of us knock on doors, we walk away with 3 appointments apiece. And it, like if you think about the people that we could hire to replace ourselves, it'd be $12 an hour. So at $12, our customer acquisition cost, theoretically, for when a customer converts at an average of $11,000, we're going to walk away with $1,600. So for a $12 acquisition and a $1,600 like lifetime cost, that's a very attractive business. Once we have more money, we'll figure out how to make that even lower than $12. But again, this is why like questions like this are easy, or excuse me, important, because it allows you to easily figure out like, how can I get in front of more people? And then the last question kind of goes back to number 5, is how often do they have this problem? The reason why that is super important and why all of these questions should be super open-ended is because you get the real like problem that they're having now. If you figure out like, hey, for us, we thought it would be like once every 10 years or so. And that's again, talking with homeowners. We realized that it's really once every like 13 weeks or so, which is how quickly most real estate investors want to buy and flip houses. If they're not owning a property or fixing a property, they're not making money. So that was really exciting because originally we had to try and build a business that would figure out like, how do we get enough margin out of that once a decade experience or purchase, which would mean we needed to charge our contractors more, or we had to figure out some way to capture like a big amount of the market all at one time. Like there's 93 million homeowners in the United States, like owner-occupied dwellings. So we either need to figure out how to get a big chunk of that 93 right out of the gate, or now that we know this, 13 weeks, like that's a lot sexier. There are companies like Airbnb that, lease apartments, or technically hotels, but we won't use that word because they're suing people. Once a quarter, once every 3 months, and they've gone on to be a big, huge company. So that's way more exciting, and it allows us to be a little bit more competitive with how we charge our contractors. So all these questions I think is really, really important because it allows you to discover who your initial customer is. And going back to this one, once you know like who these people are, we can have another talk on like how to market to those guys and acquire your first like true, like your next 100 or your next 1,000. Facebook ads, Google ads, those type of things. But now that you have already discovered like these are the people who are most likely to use my product, it gets a little bit easier. And now it comes down to validate. Like how do you get the somebody who said, if you build this, I will come, to actually come, right? That's like the $1 million question. For us, what we did is we like built the shittiest version of our idea, but we did it really, really fast. And then we launched our beta. We did it with 25 people. Yeah, it wasn't a lot. So pretty much we lumped up together all of our LinkedIn connections. We wrote a script that said, hey, go ahead and get rid of all of the duplicates. And we came out the other end with roughly 2,000 people. We sent a mass email to them. By the way, LinkedIn has like a poll feature for all of your connections to turn them into emails. And then we sent an email to them and we're like, hey, if you're a real estate investor, respond to me because I have this really cool idea that I want to run by you. We got like 100 hits to respond back. And then we told them what we were doing. And then like 25 to 30 of them were like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And we ended up closing our first deal. Derek Holt went through the funnel, never met with a contractor. Like he met with Victor on the first meeting to like measure his house. But after that, everything happened electronically. And then he came out the other end and was like, yo, that was awesome. Like, I got another property that I'm working on in Baltimore. We're about to do his windows in 2 weeks on a condo in Baltimore. He was like, I'm in. Like, the first one happened in August. He's already coming back, and it's October. Like, that just proves, like, we did our research, and now we're able to really execute on what matters. So build the shittiest version of your app and then launch it, because speed is most important. It'll allow you to, like, really figure out, like, what's working or what's important to build. And the reason why that's important, Sam, can you click that link for me? I don't know if there's sound on here, but this is what I thought the original version.
So once you come to the RemodelMate application, which you can access from your smartphone or from your desktop, what we're going to need to do is gather some information
all this
from you
sexy ass
before we can start
design,
making those matches for you to contract for the project
and I was
that you're
also
choosing.
sick on that
So
video.
we start off by asking you where you're located by
I hate you guys if
geographic
you're laughing
area,
at me.
which project you'd like to get started, what's most important to you in terms
Like
of
all this
features,
super colorful,
or
like
offerings from that
buttons,
contractor
next,
or product.
financing.
We
Oh,
wanna
Google
know
Maps
your home
API. It's so
address
sexy.
that
It's so
we can try and get
cool.
as hyper-local as possible.
Let me know
as
your
well as the
budget.
that you're working
Slider.
on, as well
Next.
as the timeline that you're working on. Once
I need a sign-in
up,
page.
we'll be able to
Because
not only
nobody's
push
going to
those
use it if they don't have like a
notifications
user
or
sign-up
those new matches
dashboard.
directly to your smartphone, but
Like,
also be able to email
all this shit,
them
it was
as
all
well.
bullshit. Like none of
At
this
this
was
point, we're
necessary.
able to
Absolutely
sort
none of
all the
this.
contractors into
Sam, you can click out of this. I'm
buckets
sure
based
nobody
on
else
how
wants
they
to hear
match
my
your
voice.
preferences.
And then if you go back to the slide, you can click on that guy. And this is the RemodelMate MVP in real life. So this is a website that we built in 6 hours on Wix. It has absolutely no live code on it. Sam, if you click Let's Go, it redirects you very obnoxiously to a type form. You can go through that process. Click roofing, budget, financing. Yeah, sure, let's do financing. How quickly do you want to, what's most important to you? Being able to weigh my options. When do you want to get started? And then, are you a homeowner? Yeah, no. And then submit. Hey, before I can give you your prices, I need to come out to your house to measure your crib. Click available times. And then very obnoxiously, again, redirects to Calendly because, again, we spent no time coding anything. Click on that. Select a day. Select a time. It takes you like 15 steps just to get to the point where I can ask you for your name. And then time, address, and you hit schedule. And then we get a notification that says, hey, you know, Albus Dumbledore wants you to measure Hogwarts. And we're like, all right, cool, sweet. We show up, we measure all 7,000 windows at Hogwarts. And then like 8 hours later, we send them like a one-page PDF that literally says company, product, installation, price. Like you're going with company ABC, they're installing these windows. They can do it in 2 weeks. And it's going to cost you $9 grand. If you want to learn more about the company, here's a link to their Facebook page. Here's a link to like not their company page, but like the Provia window page, like their Provia's website page. Installation is again a link to Calendly, and then the price is like a Stripe hack that we put together that goes back through Typeform. So somebody clicks buy now, they get redirected to a Typeform, they enter in their credit card information. And then that's when we know, like, okay, we need to take our cut and send the difference to the contractor. That's our MVP. It's ugly as shit. But in August, when we decided to go full time, we closed our first deal in 26 days. We made $327. I've never been more excited to make $300 in my life. Then in September, in September, we went from 30,425 to 6750. So for all you math guys in here, that's 96% month over month growth for an idea that is literally the shittiest version of RemodelMate. This month we're on pace to do like 13. So again, another like 100% growth month over month. And like before this, I was in sales. I did like $5 million at Aflac. I've made well over 6 figures. I have never been more excited to make $1,000 in a month in my life. I eat ramen all day. I sleep in the same apartment as these two fucks. And that's not funny, by the way. Like 3 men should not live in a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment. It's just not like, that shouldn't happen. But then this, you know, it works today. And the cool thing is that Derek, who was our first user, he goes and he's probably one of our biggest evangelists. Like he calls us back all the time. He's like, hey, I don't like what you change, like how you changed the matches. Like I like the 4-block PDF. I don't want, I changed it to go back to that YouTube page. I went back to like this, right? Like I sent him a PDF that was like 7 pages long and it like linked together these pages. Hit play.
Once we match you with a contractor,
So like,
you're able to learn
this is supposed to be a scroll, right? Where like this is your roofing information, this is your window information. You scroll up, you push up, or you schedule a measure, whatever. I sent him this. You can pause it again.
Product that is going to be.
I sent him that, and he was like, "Don't ever send me a 7-page fucking estimate again. I will kick your ass." And that's just like, that's awesome, right? And then more importantly, because we're like, all right, cool, we're going to solve for this. Not only does he come back and be our customer again less than 13 weeks later, but he also refers people to us like nobody's business. All of our posts on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, he's always liking them, reposting them, whatever. Like, this is the reason why, like, don't build shit like this, because what's most important is that you should build products that are painkillers, not vitamins. Like, if you ever had a headache, you're ready to snort Tylenol to get rid of that headache. If you realize that you're a little bit tired because you have an iron deficiency, you're like, fuck those vitamins, it'll go away soon, like I'll take a nap, I'll be okay. That's what you want to build. Tylenol, not Flintstones gummies. That's the difference. You can go back to Keynote. I think I'm done. Yeah, so I'm done. So shameless plug, everybody go to RemodelMate, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Medium, like and follow everything, because I asked nicely. And then questions, ask them now. In the back, stand up, say your name again, and then ask. Yeah. It's definitely a two-sided marketplace. Word. So good question. How did we come up with the idea, and then how do we solve for like both sides of the marketplace? All right. So the first thing is, after I watched Out of Black, that went. My regional coordinator went on. He started his own company called. Tech. I'm so. For the rest of my life. Regional. I thought I was gonna live, breathe, sleep sales for the rest of my life. As a salesperson, there's a lot of money in it as a company. As a salesperson, there's not a ton of cash in it. So I went to I worked at Living Social. I worked at Breeze. I worked at Indeed. I worked for all these different companies afterwards. And one of my buddies reached out to me and said, hey, I need to get my siding replaced. He lives in Hyattsville. This is when I was at Living Social. And I need to get my siding replaced. My wife has been, killing me about it. If I don't get it fixed, there's going to be, big issues, and I don't want any problems. So I was like, look, dude, I'm not in home improvement anymore. I work for Living Social. I'm in a tech company. Like, there's Angie's List, there's Home Advisor, there's all these different tools out there. Like, you don't need me. And he was like, yeah, I tried Angie's List, but Angie's List is a review site, and Home Advisor is a directory. Like, it's pretty much like the yellow pages for home improvement. It doesn't really help me. And I was like, all right, cool, but dude, like, I got out of home improvement for a reason. I don't want to do this. And he was like, I'll pay you for it. And I was like, when do I show up? I'm like, I'm in. He paid me $100, and what I did is like literally sat beside him through 3 estimates. And beforehand, I went through like this little needs analysis with him. I pretty much say like, before we talk to anybody, what is it that you want? And we sat through these 3 different appointments. And one of like the cool things is contractors, they're used to coming out, doing an estimate, and closing the deal on the spot. So when I was at Long Fence, I was a 76% closer. It means every 3 appointments that I out of every 4 appointments that I ran, 3 of them I walked out with a contract. And that is home improvement, right? The guys who suck at sales do it 1 out of 3. The guys that are really good at sales can do it almost every single sit. But that's the business, right? Like if you don't win a contract today, you don't win the contract back. So we told them, we were like, look, we're going through 3 different people. We'll call back the winner, right? And the contractor was like, all right, screw off, whatever, fine, I'm out. Long story short, we went back over and we were like, based on what you told me you need, which contractor do you want to go with? And I'd already picked my solution. Like I'd circled it with this big ugly red marker. And I was like, I'm going to tell you, but I want to know what you think first. And he was like, I want to go with contractor 2. I flipped over all my recommendations, like all the notes that I'd scribbled on. I was like, good, I want to go with contractor 2 as well. And he was like, all right, great, let's call him back. So that was the first bulb that went off. And I was like, holy shit, I can teach homeowners how to like make this selection on their own. Like I don't necessarily need to be there. I just need to set them up. Like these are the questions you need to ask yourself. If you can answer these questions, you're ready to talk to a contractor. So then I called back contractor B and I was like, look, I'm Chad. I was the guy with Carlos. Remember we need to get siding done? He was like, yeah, what do you want? Fuck off. And I was like, nah, we want to get your siding. He was like, get the fuck out of here. And I was like, no, I'm serious. He was like, how did you do that? And I was like, how did I do what? He was, how did you get him to call me back? I've been in the business for 20 years. I've never gotten somebody to call me back. I was like, well, we kind of did this thing and, you were the best person after we did our thing. And he was like, I don't know how you did it. I don't care. Like I was much more like long-winded at the time. He was like, I don't care how you did it. Screw all that. Send me more of those leads because if you can get him to make a decision when I haven't been able to do this in 20 years, I'll pay you for that. I was like, shit. I got both people wanting to pay me. I'm going to be a fucking millionaire. And then that's when I was telling the story to these guys, Vic, who was at Bozzuto, and Zay, who was at JP Morgan, both in real estate. And they were like, you're an idiot. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm going to be rich. And he was like, no, you can only be in one house at a time. I was like, fuck. He's right. Well, how do we fix that? And Vic was like, you worked at a tech company. Like, why don't you just build an app? And I was like, I don't know how to fucking build an app. What do you mean, just build an app? And long story short, he was like, we need to figure out how to get into 100 homes at a time or 1,000 homes at a time. And that's when we were like, all right, cool. This idea has legs. Craig, you got $1 million so we can go build this app because I don't know what I'm doing. He was like, no, go discover who your customer is, go validate who your customer is, and then maybe I'll talk to you. So that was that. Now, your second question is more interesting because right around the time when I was telling Vic that like, I'm going to be a millionaire, he was like, no, you're not because you can only be in one house at one time. I was like, all right, well, if we're going to build an app, this is a two-sided marketplace. We got to build both sides. Like at Living Social, you have like vendors who sell deals and then consumers who buy those deals. And I was like, let's solve for the contractor first because I don't know where to start to find homeowners except by knocking on doors. And quite frankly, I didn't feel like knocking on doors a year ago. So I was like, Vic, me and you both know how to sell. Let's call 100 contractors, tell them what we're doing, and see if they will take a meeting with us. We called 100. 80 of them were like, yep, let's set up a meeting. And we were like, fuck. We just told them that we have this app and it's awesome and it's going to solve all their problems. We have shit. And then we were like, all right, screw it. We're salespeople. There's no way that 80% is like the real number, right? We must have just gotten lucky with that first batch of 100. Let's call another 100 to make sure that we're not like wrong. We called another set of 100 and 92 people said yes this time. And we were like, fuck, we got to figure out how to build an app. Like we got 172 customers right here. And then after we figured that out, we were like, yo, it's not really going to be hard to acquire contractors because the current solution, Angie's List and Home Advisor, they charge a setup fee of $500, both of them. Just to be on the platform, like just for the distribution that Angie's List and Home Advisor has, it costs you $500. To say contractor ABC is an Angie's List contract, it costs you $500. And then if you're on Angie's List, it costs you $99 per month. Doesn't matter how many jobs come onto the platform, it costs you $99 per month. Home Advisor is worse. Every time they send you a lead, they charge you anywhere from $35 to $165 for the lead. In other words, William lives at the University of Maryland and he's kind of interested in windows, $65. Sam might want a roof. He's also at Maryland, $65. No guarantee of whether or not the job is going to convert. And I don't know what you guys know about contractors, but like they're not really good businessmen. Like they kind of like it's one in the bush is better than one in the hand is two in the bush, and that's how they run their businesses. So when we were like, yo, we think we're really good at like the whole warming up the lead thing, that we'll only send homeowners to you once they've signed a contract, or like once they're ready to get done. But if we sell a $10,000 deal for you, we want 15%. They're like, so essentially it's $1,500, but only if I get a job? We were like, yeah. They're like, well, my marketing cost usually runs me about $3,000, 30% of a deal. So you're actually saving me 50%. I'm in. And then we were like, all right, that's cool. And then we were like, shit, we still don't have an app. But the cool thing is, like, once we realized that, like, yo, that's not hard, we had to go figure out how to find homeowners. And that's when we came back to this. And it's like, all right, we need to figure out how to get more homeowners, because the contractor side is going to be easy. And with a lot of marketplaces, like, that's what one side is going to kind of solve for itself. So like for you, there are tons of makeup artists that don't have marketing budgets, or maybe they have marketing budgets, but there's no way they can compete with like L'Oreal, who's trying to get the same customer. So instead they need a cheaper, quicker solution to grow their business. And that will be like easy for you. The other side, finding all of these women who want like an on-demand kind of makeup artist, that's going to be hard, or it's going to be harder. But yeah, what you kind of have to do is like figure out how many makeup artists you can get. And then for us, like right now, actively, we only have like 7 home improvement contractors active on the platform, because we want to make sure that like the network effects are right? So if we close all 180 that said yes, and then we don't have enough pipeline to keep them busy, they're going to be like, RemodelMate sucks, I don't want to use it, they're going to leave, and we're never going to be able to sell them again. So keep that in mind too. That was a really long answer. I do apologize, but hopefully it answered a lot of other questions in the room too. There's a question here.
Yeah, I was worried Montgomery County. Montgomery County, oh my God. I live in Kensington.
Yep.
There's like a home renovation, improvement, spurt going on right now.
Yeah.
I was wondering if there's like, is there some contractors in like, let's say Montgomery County that are doing hundreds of contracts just in that area that like would be perfect for you to like get on your platform, get on your app?
Yeah, so the contractors, we have a very strict vetting process. So you can't just say like, hey, I install windows, roofing, or siding, and like, all right, you're on the platform. You have to be in business for at least 10 years, 0 unresolved complaints with the Better Business Bureau, and no name changes in that period of time, so you can't like void your warranty. So essentially, if I wouldn't introduce you to my mom, you're not allowed on RemodelMate. And that's also kind of important in the long run, because if your company has an opinion, your customers will also be able to like pass that on to other people that you may never be able to touch. But to answer your question, yeah, we prospect out of a couple different like invite-only organizations for home improvement. And yeah, what we do is when we find like a local maximum of homeowners that are like, hey, like right now, most of our customers are in Southern Prince George's County. So we only onboard contractors that will serve Southern Prince George's County. As we grow west, we're going to have to find more contractors for there, but we want to grow at a pace that makes sense, so that we're able to deliver on both sides of the marketplace. But yeah, our target neighborhood is one that was built 30 to 40 years ago, because all the projects that we service, windows, roofing, siding, gutters, doors, all seem to be crapping out at about that 30 to 40 year mark. Windows would have been replaced at least 2 times in that 40-year period. Your roof would have been replaced twice. Your siding needs to be replaced for the second time. So a place like Kensington is perfect, because a lot of the houses were built in the late 70s, early 80s. Yep. Appreciate that question and that insight. We're canvassing Kensington next week, tomorrow. Another question.
Have you spent any money on marketing?
No. So we know how we're going to spend money on marketing. We spent from August 1st till September 30th, we were trying to raise a very small pre-seed round, like an angel round of 100 grand. And we were unsuccessful in that raise. Mostly because people said like, hey, your idea sounds great, but I don't know if you're gonna be able to execute on it. And as a team, we decided that like, you're either raising money or you're building your business. It's very hard to do both, especially when there's 3 of you. So we stopped doing that. So we don't have the money to spend. Like I told you, we sleep in the same apartment. We live off ramen and Starbucks. So, and a lot of times it's not Starbucks. So we just don't have the cash to do marketing. But our target, so on our Twitter, or excuse me, on our Instagram, we have 950 followers. And every time we post a picture, we get 150 to 200 likes. So a lot of we have really, really good engagement because we treat our customers so good. And that's where a lot of our our new customers come from. It's delivering on like the Derek Holt story and him telling all of his friends, and then they fall in love with the story and then keeps going. However, that is not scalable. Like that will not happen through customer 10,000, right? We're gonna have to start spending money eventually. The money that we've spent so far is all sweat. So knocking on doors, home shows. We go to home and garden shows that are like, imagine going to like Cole Fieldhouse and every booth that's set up is a contractor and everybody who shows up is a homeowner that says they want something. Those shows cost between $100 to $1,000. The ones that are really expensive, we volunteer to work at. So like we have one coming up in Charles County, where we literally are like, hey, we'll set up all the tables. We'll set up all the booths, the check-in, all that stuff. But in exchange for that, we want a booth Saturday and Sunday when the event is going on. So that's another thing, I guess, is be like super scrappy. Don't spend cash on marketing yet until like you can deliver on your promise, and more importantly, that you're ready. Like I said, we still get like shit ourselves excited when we close a $10,000 deal. So to then take like the precious $1,000 that we're using to like pay our rent right now and then spend it on a Facebook campaign to go and get 100 new customers that we're not going to be able to service like very well, that's just stupid money. Like it literally makes more sense for you to take one customer through the pipeline with a big fucking grin on their face than to take 100 people through the pipeline and they come out the other end and they're like, that was okay. Like that. So when we look at that, we're like, nope, we need our money for ramen. No marketing yet, but one day we'll get there, probably before the end of the year. Good question though. Any other questions? William again.
Yeah, so what's your roadmap for growth? Like, I assume you do a lot of stuff manually right now, right? Like, when you see this content do you like contact contractors and stuff?
No. So our secret sauce for like how we're able to match a homeowner to a contractor so quickly is the contractors tell us the projects that they'll install and at what price point. So when somebody completes the type form and then schedules a measurement, we go out and measure the home, and then from those measurements, we're able to write up a price for the homeowner that the contractor will honor, no questions asked, no haggling, no nothing, and we're able to shoot that out to the homeowner. So our roadmap to growth, I guess, is, well, one, we're looking for web development interns. We can offer up to 6 credits at the University of Maryland. Anybody who's interested, email me. It's just chad@remodelmate.com. 6 credits. We don't have cash, but we'll have some of the best coffee and occasionally some beer. I'm not joking. You guys all look 21 and over. Move fast, break things, right? Yes, if you're over 21. So the roadmap is, the first thing is that to prove that we can be a truly scalable model, we need to eliminate the need for a RemodelMate, like actually, i.e. like an actual person to have to show up to do the measurements. So we have an idea for building software that can point and shoot to capture the measurement of like a window or your roof or your siding. I'm not going to tell you guys how, not because I think you're going to steal the idea, because I haven't really figured it out all the way yet. I know it was cool. Sam had a great quote this week. He said, don't be afraid to share your ideas, because the people who want to steal your ideas are too stupid to, and the people that are smart enough to steal your ideas are already working on something of their own. So don't be afraid to share your ideas. Literally, that's the like first step. Like if we solve for that, we can start kicking Angie's ass right now. The other roadmap is we're following like an Uber growth plan. So we want to attack the 20 major cities in the United States: New York, Boston, Chicago, LA, SF, Dallas, Austin, all the way through. If we can get all those 20 states, and what I mean by that is we have to make sure that we build for the supply side, i.e. the contractors, before we start introducing or acquiring customers in those areas. But yeah, it's a balance of those two things. Or let's say we don't figure out the software play just yet, like right away. We can launch in, like, say, New York. We just need to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place, which would be, at least the three of us. Like duplicating the three of ourselves, having a general manager, a community manager, and then like an office or logistics manager, so that they can go and copy the same exact go-to-market plan that we did here in New York, in Chicago, in SF, until we figure out the software play. But yeah, that's the growth plan. Any other questions?
Time for one more.
What's up? Go for it.
So you're talking about how to get kind of like your practice or your basic model out there versus having something that is a little bit more refined.
Yep.
So like we're like my friend is having kind of that problem where we want to put out something that is the most refined, the nicest, just because we know there are other people who are trying to take something similar, or there have been competitors in the past that have started marketing something similar, but at least something out there. So we don't want to put out anything, out there just because we know there's other people working on it. So the practice model might not necessarily bring traction for us. So like I just want to know why you think your concept that just having it at the basic is much better than having something a little bit more refined that you.
So I think that there are only two advantages, right? You either have the first mover advantage, where you will swallow up the entire market and nobody else will be able to take that from you, or you have second mover advantage, where you are 10x better the first mover and you're able to steal customers. Other than that, I don't think there is an advantage to being perfect. Like if you're the reason why is because, like you're saying, like there's a whole bunch of competitors, right? If they haven't launched already, it's probably because they don't know how to solve the problem that they're saying they're solving. So if you just go out and say like, fuck all of those guys, like I actually do the shit that I say I do, you have an opportunity to catch at least 100 people that are gonna fall in love with your product, and that those other guys will never be able to take from you. Like I am very, very confident that right now, if another home improvement marketplace launched today that was way more polished than us, there's no way that they could take Derek Holt from us. Not a chance. I would bet my firstborn child on that. Like, he almost like died. He almost got like a guillotine by like the extension cord. I'm sorry, guys. So yeah, I think that the biggest thing is like get it out there, because you're probably spending a lot of precious time right now making it like really polished, and people just don't care. They just don't. Like I told you, I went to the polished version with Derek, and he was like, I don't like it. I don't care. It takes me too long. Like, do you save your user time? Do you save your user money? Do you provide a better experience? Or do you do some combination of those three things? If you do any one of those things, you can build a big business today without polish. I think that waiting on time, like waiting to be more polished, like what if the other people that are like you end up launching theirs before you, and they capture 100 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people. That's 10,000 people that you may never be able to win. I just don't think it's worth it. The other thing is too, like sales, like fixes a lot of problems. Like You know, what would you do if you launched today and you made $10,000? Could you hire one more person to build a product in a week instead of a month? Like, just get it out there.
Yeah, I just want to add that something really cool you should do. Google like the first MVPs for like all the big brands, so Airbnb, Uber,
Facebook.
they look like crap.
Yeah.
So I think that
Like, people can't even remember when Facebook launched or when Google launched. Like,
it's just a cool exercise. It'll give you some like perspective.
yeah, Airbnb's original logo was like a graffiti logo that was like dark blue inside of a purple outline, and it physically looked like Craigslist. So that was Airbnb's MVP. And the thing is that nobody cared how it looked. They liked the fact that like you could rent somebody's couch for $47, whereas the alternative was renting a hotel in the same city for 3 times that. Like, nobody cares what it looks like. I would say Google the first versions of the MVPs of like really big successful companies, and you'll kind of laugh at yourself and be like, why? It looks terrible, right? It's not impressive at all. It looks borderline creepy. Yeah, like I'm going to live in somebody's, like stay in somebody's basement. So for $47, I'm pretty much going to be killed by an axe murderer. Got it. Yep, sign me up. And 190 countries in 7 years. So just get it out. There was one more question here. I know that we weren't supposed to take one more, but
So my question was, when you were like calling like the 100 contractors, just think about like the yellow book.
We call them out of NARI. So NARI is the National Association for the Remodeling Industry. It's kind of like saying the Hall of Fame for home improvement. So we figured like if we can get the like cream of the crop to say yes to this idea, we could sell it to anybody. So we went high end, where a lot of people go low end. Like they try and say like, let me get Chuck on a truck on my platform. And once I solve for their problems, like I'll go upstream. The problem is that Chuck in the truck usually makes you a lot of money, and then you never decide to go upstream. And for us, we didn't want to become another Angie's List that will do everything. Like we'll walk your dog, we'll brush your teeth, we'll mount a TV, we'll pick your nose. Like we didn't want to do that. We wanted to be a home improvement marketplace for 5-figure deals, 6-figure deals. And like one of the people that we just signed up, he was like, hey, I need to get 53 windows replaced. His bid was $36,000. That's the customer I wanted. I did not want the mounted TV customer that was $100. So yeah, that was us. I think that's all for the time that we have, but I'm going to be hanging around a little bit later. Thanks so much for having me out and laughing at all my corny jokes. If you guys have more questions, I'll be hanging out. Just come up and ask. I'm more than happy to help.